Hi, everyone. Thanks for spending about the next 4 to 6 minutes learning about some of the issues and processes we can use to spur innovation and creativity so you can achieve your entrepreneurial dreams. And please know that I don't intend to actually read through all of the slides, but there are a number of things I'd like to highlight to assist you in your thought processes. And the first is to come up with a couple of definitions that innovation is to introduce, or as if it is new, to make changes in a new way, and to create is to bring about a course of action to produce and bring something into existence, something new. So they're slightly different definitions, and I'll give you a chance to think through those as you think about what it is you'd like to do as you become an entrepreneur. Part of our discussion today then is to talk about the various ways you can be innovative and creative. And there are different approaches to this. That's what's exciting about entrepreneurship, is there's no one right way. One way that people can do this is to be what we call the adapter. And the idea here is this is the person that takes a methodical approach. They focus on solving problems. They like to refine current practices, and they're sensitive to having groups work together. That's somebody who is the adapter. Another approach to entrepreneurship is somebody called the innovator. This is the person who looks at things from unusual angles. They discover problems and avenues for solutions. They like to question the basic assumptions, and they also have very little tolerance for routine or a very little need to have others agree or have consensus. So that's different than the adapter. This is known as the innovator. So whether you're one style or another, the whole idea here is to recognize and try to overcome some barriers to creativity. And what are some of those barriers? Well, number one, please know that when you are launching a new business venture, there is no one correct answer. If you think that way, that can be a barrier. You don't necessarily have to be logical. You don't necessarily have to follow the rules or be practical or specialized. You're going to want to embrace ambiguity. In other words, there is no clear-cut cookie cutter approach as you move forward. So try not to be afraid or avoid ambiguity, because that can often stifle creativity. Probably the biggest one is right here, fearing mistakes or failure. What I'd like to offer up is this class is a great opportunity to learn about these things with very little risk, quite frankly. And so try not to be afraid of mistakes or failure, but instead use those as learning opportunities. And lastly, lots of us don't think we are creative. That can be a very strong barrier to us solving problems. So one of the things to do is think about avoiding the statements that are actually going to hurt our creativity. So you can see here a list of various statements that people may say or do, and that does not help creativity. And the other comment I wanted to make around this topic is that as you're thinking about starting your own business, now is the time to recognize those who are in your life who support this concept, or those who make comments like this trying to inhibit your growth and creativity. And it's decision-making time, because the idea is to surround ourselves with people who can actually help us succeed, not the kind of people who are often using this kind of language to inhibit creativity. So part of the process is that we can learn to be creative. And the way we can do that is use some specific questions to actually spur creativity. Is there a new way to do it? Can you give it a different twist? What if we do the exact opposite? Can we rearrange this or put it to other uses? What other ideas can we combine? How do we borrow and adapt? Notice there's some specific thought around the science of creativity. All of us can use these questions. Other things we can do, let's begin to expect ourselves to be creative. Let's encourage curiosity. Let's view problems as challenges, not as terrible problems. And again, we are strongly of the belief that you can train people on creativity, and then of course what we want to do is reward it and role model it. Let's try to take on a creative challenge every day, and we'll develop those skills. A couple other things we can do, and this is important. We want to have teams or people around us with diverse viewpoints who can help us come up with new ideas. They'll help us accept change, they can help us enjoy a new perspective, and we want to be involved in a trusting and caring environment so we can stretch and try some things. It's our fear of mistakes and failure often that make it difficult for us to be creative. So let's be in teams or surrounded by people who can help us with this. So what are some things to think about? There are some specific types of innovation, and it's helpful to be aware of it. One is to actually go out and invent something. The other concept is try to come up with some new uses. They call that extension. Baking soda is always a great example. Maybe we want to find some way to, if it works, we can duplicate it like a franchise, or what they call synthesis, which is let's put two ideas together. In this case, FedEx put together mail and an air service. So I would encourage you, as you're thinking about your ideas, try to use one of these types of innovation or think in these terms, and you can come up with some better ideas. So, where might we look? What are some sources? People always ask, how do you come up with ideas? We'll constantly be watching. Look for the things that are unexpected. Look at the changes that are going on out there. Watch what's happening with demographics, or watch what's happening as you read and think about concepts, and use what you know. Use your knowledge. All of us have things that we love with interests and hobbies. Those are often great ideas and sources for innovation. Other things to think about, you can see a list on here. We try to focus on our hobbies. Maybe we have a technical expertise. Maybe we do something part-time, or maybe we can franchise and learn from somebody else. The other option, by the way, I wanted to highlight is maybe you can buy an existing business or license what someone else does. All of these are good ideas, but I wanted you to know there are multiple ways to get into the business world. So I put together a few summary points. First of all, please know that creative ideas can be generated all around us. They're all ideas around the world. Try to think of new uses for an existing object or an existing product. Look for the things that bother people. And yes, we strongly believe that creativity and innovation and problem solving can be learned. It's a science, and we can all learn those steps. Often, fearing mistakes is a barrier to creativity. And if you haven't yet, at some point in your career, you're going to hear a "nope, it's not in the budget" comment. That does not help creativity. What does is working in groups and take the things that you enjoy. Maybe it's take your hobby and try to translate it into a business idea. Hopefully, these are some ideas you can consider as you begin to develop your innovation and creativity skills. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.